I am so excited for this week's episode of the Wealth Cafe because we are going to actually take a deep dive into a sample financial plan. My goal today is that you leave and it's no longer this pie in the sky thing of what the heck is a financial plan. You can understand visually what the process is like and what it looks like to build a financial plan. Whenever I do what is called our 45-minute dream builder call with clients, we end by taking a look at a sample financial plan because I want prospective clients to know what they are going to be entering into and what a financial plan truly looks like. I don't think enough people talk about it, and I might get a lot of heat from other financial advisors as I show the inside to how the sausage is made, but I think this is so important for people to understand. So we are going to take a look at the Beck family today, and I just want to preface this before we go into the plan and I share my screen. The Becks are a family that is fictitious and based off of a lot of different situations and scenarios that I have seen in my years of building financial plans. I have seen everything and worked with families that are blended, divorced, single families, traditional families with that 2.3 kids and the golden retriever. You name it, I have seen it all. And as we go throughout this Wealth Cafe series, I am going to be sharing other sample financial plans. And please share with me if there is anything in particular you would like to see, and I would be more than happy to share it here. So let's dive in and take a look at the Beck family. So, okay, let's see. We have the Beck family here. Now that technology wants to be my friend. Okay, so we start out, a lot of this information is gathered during the discovery call that we have in the financial planning process. It's important for us to understand the different sources of income and also too, whether that's employment income, stock, bonus, you name it, and where you are living in terms of taxes. So that is very important. You can see that the Becks are in their late 30s. And as we go on, you will also see that they have two young children, Gwen and Braden, who are 6 and 3. And this is important to understand, even if you don't have children, are there any other people, whether it's parents or siblings or even friends that you may end up being financially responsible for? Because we want to make sure we are factoring those into your financial plan. So as I discussed with the Becks, hypothetically, during their Dream Builder call, is they want to have plenty of time with friends and family in retirement. They also want to have time to travel, and they are those people who could see themselves working part-time for a couple of years before they fully retire. And so let's continue on. We also have their concerns here. So not having a paycheck emotionally is a very big change for a lot of people, and also running out of money. So Kristen and Tom want to make sure they are retiring the same year. So that will be 65 for Kristen and 66 for Tom. Then we get into what is one of my favorite parts is, and this is what we also discussed during the Dream Builder call. So retirement is always necessary. We want to plan for that. We want to be able to understand the cost behind what your retirement lifestyle looks like. We also have for them wants and wishes. So wishes are those things where if we could make it happen, that would be amazing. However, we're not willing to give up our wants and compromise those for the wishes. So for the Beck family, they are really focused on planning for college for Braden and Gwen. So they have a bit of time, and we calculated out in here. They want to plan for private college to make sure they have as much money set aside. This is a big priority for them. What's great is we can edit this and you can say, I want to pay for half of their college or a year or as much as I can. And these are all things that we can play around with. And as you can see, there are so many different priorities that we can put in here. And even if something is not listed, we can make sure that we add it into your plan. So we then head on to the financials, and this is still the piece of where are we now? This is a rough estimate, but we can also go into the Social Security website and calculate out what the expected Social Security benefit is for the Beck family. Here we are just using the default, which is based off of their income, which for this situation is totally fine, but I do encourage clients to go in and actually find out their numbers. So this is an important section. So this we all go through during the discovery meeting that I have with clients. And this is based off of, like I said, where they are now. So you can see that Kristen and Tom each have their own 401k. And here is how much they're adding each in, $23,000 a year. They also have a joint account, and here is how they are funding it. And they each have, from old employers, they have each their own rollover, which is great. And I also make sure I prioritize that I'm assigning the right use of these accounts. Something that a lot of systems will do is they will default and say, okay, well, you have this much money in retirement. You can pull that money out and fund everything right now. And it gives people a false sense of security. So we want to make sure that the right goals and the right accounts are assigned to one another. So the Becks also have a home. That is what this other asset is listed here. Give me 1 second and it will load. And it is jointly owned, and they plan, sorry about that. They plan to sell it when they retire, and it is estimated value around $1.4 million. So, and that's its current value, but when they sell, ballpark is around 1.6. Granted, we will never hit this nail on the head as markets change and depending on how far you are from selling, but we can get a rough estimate of what we expect. So this is an area that always shocks clients is very few people actually know what their net worth is, right? So that's your assets minus your liabilities is your net worth. So here, clients are able to fully see what their net worth is. So our friends, the Becks, have a net worth of $802,000. You can see that there is a liability up here of $1 million, and that is from their mortgage that they have currently on their home. So this is when the fun comes into play, and everyone loves to see, I will say, this is what really gets people excited is they want to know their probability of success. And we use the Monte Carlo, which is running 1,000 different trials, simulations, and possible outcomes to figure out if you can actually make all of these needs, wants, and wishes come to fruition. So let's click the button and see what it is for the Becks. Okay, so the Becks are at 18%. I've seen 0, so 18 is at least a move in the right direction. However, the goal is to get them into the green. And this is where the financial plan really comes into play and the work that I do on the back end. So before I meet with clients and do the recommendation meeting, I am having a field day in here. You can see that I got them up to 76% in this scenario. It's going to vary for everyone. So I have so much fun going into the what if worksheet and playing around and seeing, okay, if we did this, if we did that. And after doing this for so many years, I know a lot of things, even too, as I'm just going through what changes we can make. So let's take a dive in here and see what changes I made for the Becks. I also want to preface that I love sharing this screen when I get on with clients and we're working through building their plan, because the changes have to feel good to you or to the client. Because if they don't, the plan will never come to fruition. If you aren't aligned with the changes and the goals, it's all useless, right? Because you're never actually going to follow the plan. So part of this is that I changed their asset allocation based on their risk tolerance, which was able to move the needle. I also played around with them, and this is a conversation I like to have personally with clients, is how would you feel about retiring however many years it is later? So for this case, it is 2 years later for the Becks. And this made a very big difference for them. I can actually go in and show you. We will move it back so I can show you what it looks like if we don't make this change. And the reason why this ends up being such a big needle mover for people is because it's less time you're drawing down your accounts, and it's also more time you are adding into your accounts. So you can see we are now down to 65%. We are still in the green zone, but I have always found in my practice, not always, a majority of the time, I have found that clients want to be further into the green zone to give wiggle room, right? What if something happens where you have to take a career break or things change? Knowing that they can make these changes is, it's very comforting to them. So you can see, we'll go back to 67 and you can see the jump that occurs here. It's always like a drum roll moment too while it loads. Okay, so you can see we're back into that 76%. And that's what the big change is here. You can see we go from 5.6 million to 5.3. That's because they will need less money to spend during retirement. So some of the other changes are how much they are contributing. to the cost for college. And so this is also another conversation starter of, okay, are you willing to contribute more to be able to put aside for their colleges? Do you want to reduce other expenses? So something here is they spend about $10,000 a year on travel. They want to go on a really big trip when they retire. Is this something you would want to change? And then we have the beach house. So this is a big question mark of, can they afford to do this? And what I love is that when I'm in the software here, it's one thing to just plug in numbers and throw things at the moon. But what is equally exciting is when I can go in here and there's all these different cash flow charts. So we can go in per item and see and bring this up. And I'm going to make sure it is sharing this. One moment. Okay, and so as you can see here, they are able to fund this beach house, which is pretty exciting. And what's also important and part of the financial planning conversation is your goals might have one cost now, but there are taxes and things that we need to take into consideration because they have such a long time horizon until they want to be purchasing this home. I made this plan a couple of years ago, so they had a longer time horizon then, but we still need to take into consideration, even if they have this in a high yield savings account, they're going to pay taxes on that money, or if it's invested in the market, depending on the goal, we need to take into consideration taxes. So this is always a great conversation to have of, are we overfunded? Are we considering enough for taxes? What can we do to really make this go from a wish to a top priority and make this really happen? And this is where we have the conversations, like I said, of, okay, what makes the most sense for what we can change? And we can do everything from adding part-time retirement, which in the case of the Becks, I will tell you, it did not make as much of a needle mover as it did for them to work the extra 2 years. That's not the case for everybody. And what I love about going through this and building a personal financial plan is no one person's scenario or situation is going to be the same. So this is where I get to geek out and I get to dive in and say, okay, what would make the most sense for the Becks or the Smiths or the Joneses or the Hopewells, whoever it might be. And I get to figure out and put the pieces together. And this is our plan. And every year when I am doing annual reviews with clients, we come back into here and we sit here and we go, okay, is it still the priority for Braden to, set aside this much for college? Do we still want the beach house? Maybe you don't want the beach house, but you want to spend more on travel. So we can go in and shift these priorities and see how it really changes the probability of success and what tweaks we need to make to be ensured that we are in this green zone and really moving the needle. There's also different things that happen, like if you have an inheritance or someone pays out a life insurance policy, or maybe you get a big gift, or even, hey, you could win the lottery, who knows? And we can input those things. We can't predict them necessarily, but unless you do know you're getting an inheritance or a gift, but there are different factors and changes that we just can't predict, but as they occur and your needs change, we can add them in here. So I hope this gives you some really good insight as to what a financial plan looks like. As I said, as we continue this Wealth Cafe series, we are going to dive into some additional plans. If there are any situations or scenarios that you want to see, please feel free to comment them below and we will do some different examples and show you really the power of building a financial plan. And I just want to remind you that every financial plan is personal. You might be sitting in here and saying, I could never work 2 more years, or easy, I'd work an extra 5 if it meant the probability of success would rise. Think about what's right for you and what feels good for you and your lifestyle. And that's why personal finance is personal. I will see you next time on the Wealth Cafe. Please make sure you are subscribing. We love your support and cannot wait to see you next week.